Okay, after our first exam, we begin to talk about the computations, how to compare two samples means. So whether these two samples, they are significantly different from each other or not. Let's say if there is a significant difference between these two samples, we say that, okay, so this observed difference between these two samples implies a true difference between the two populations behind these two samples. And if there is no significant difference, we say that, okay, so the observed difference between these two samples we have here is coming out of observation error. It's purely due to chance. And the two populations behind these two samples, they are actually the same. They are actually having the same mean. So that's kind of the the conceptual understanding of this t-test. And in our last class, we talked about this matched t-test, or sometimes we say pair t-test, related t-test, or repeated t-test. They all mean the same thing. So this matched t-test or this related t-test is commonly used when we want to compare whether there is a significant change between two tests taken by the same individuals. Okay, so that is we have a group of subjects. Okay, it could be people, it could be some other stuff. So this group of subjects will provide two data points. And what we are doing here is we want to compare whether these two data points are significantly different from each other or not. So basically, we are making comparisons within each individual. Okay, so a typical design is we have the pretest and we have the post-test. So let's say I have a group of people, and I have their kind of weight data. So this is the pretest results, or the pretest data I have here. And then I put this group of people, all of them, on a diet plan for a month. And then again measure their weight after this diet plan, okay, to see if this diet plan makes a difference or not in terms of, increasing or reducing people's weight. So again, we are comparing each person's before and after weight. That is what we call the repeated t-test, matched t-test, or related t-test. And today we are going to talk about a different situation. We call it independent samples. We still call it t-test, but the prefix is a little bit different. We call it independent t-test. Basically, we are doing a between subject comparison. So what does it mean? It means we are not comparing pre and post test. We are making a comparison between two separate groups. Okay, so I'm talking about the difference between this related t-test and the independent t-test here. So unlike this related t-test, what we are doing here is each subject or each participant in our sample will provide only one data point. Okay, so we are basically comparing data group A with group B, with a different group. So it's not a pre-test and post-test design. Let me give you a concrete example. So let's say we want to compare the weight between men and women. Okay, so we are gonna measure a group of men's weight. This is our group A, and then we're gonna measure a group of women's weight. That is group B. So what we are doing here is to compare these two samples' weight means and see if this observed difference between this group A and group B can indicate a true difference between all men and all women on this planet, which is our populations. So that is one example I have here for this independent t-test. Basically, we are making between group comparison. We are comparing group A against group B, and each individual in these two groups only provides one data point. So a typical design for this independent t-test in social science is this experiment group versus this control group. What is this design like? Let me describe it for you guys. So that is, we randomly put people into two groups, and one group will receive some treatment, such as a diet plan. We call this group experiment group because this group receives some treatment, some interventions. And the other group does not receive anything, any treatment. We call it a control group. Okay. So after a while of this treatment or this diet plan, we're gonna measure the variable of our interest, let's say the weight. And we want to see if this diet plan helps reduce this experimental group's weight. Okay, how to achieve this goal? We are comparing the experiment group's weight with the control group's weight after this treatment to our experiment group. And here is a simplified example. So let's say we have two plants. Okay, we put like 10 bean seeds in each of these pots. We have these two pots, and this pot represents the experiment group, and this pot represents the control group. And then we're gonna water this experiment group regularly. So this water is actually our treatment. And this control group, we do nothing to it. And after a while, we're gonna kind of see whether this experimental group has more seeds sprout compared with this control group. So the comparison we're doing here is between these two pots, okay, between these two groups. We are not comparing this pre-test and post-test. Instead, we are doing this between group comparison. Okay. So that is kind of the basic idea or the concept of this independent t-test. And next, I'm gonna give you guys a concrete example and talk about how to calculate or how to compute this, how to do this t-test. Okay, so here is a concrete example. So let's say I'm curious to see whether men and women have different number of sexual partners in their throughout their whole life. Of course, I cannot collect, the data for all men and women on this planet and ask for their, sexual partner number in their life. But instead, I can collect some sample and try to make some inferences about the population based on this sample. So here is what I did. I recruited 10 men and asked for their number of sexual partners lifetime. Okay, so these 10 values represent these 10 men, how many sexual partners they have in their life. And do the same thing for these 10 women and ask for their number of sexual partners lifetime. Okay, so let's assume that they are telling the truth, they are being honest. So we have, and we calculated the mean for these 10 men. So on average, these 10 men have 8.9 sexual partners throughout their life. And I also have the standard deviation here. But for women, I have 12 women here. And on average, these 12 women have 6.58 sexual partners throughout their life. And I also have the standard deviation data here. And data size is 12. And I use X to denote the men and Y to denote the women. Okay? So we can see that there is a main difference between men and women in terms of their sexual partner numbers throughout their life. The main difference is 2.32. So on average, these 10 men have 2.32 sexual partners than these 12 women. So here is a question. Is this main difference a true difference or it's just a sampling error, it's an observation error. That is a question we want to answer. And here, each individual provides only one data point. We are not doing a pre-test and post-test comparison. We are comparing between groups. So we are going to talk about this independent t-test.